Hello, everybody. Thank you. As Jill said, my name is Ian. His isn't. His is
Miko.
Miko. And we are one half of the team at Alderma Spirits. So we're a very small craft distillery based, as we said, in the centre of Cognac. Literally just across the road from us here is the covered market, the very centre of the town. We're the only working distillery in the centre of town, for reasons which will become very clear a little bit later on. And we're going to share with you this evening, obviously we're going to taste some gin together. We're going to taste our flagship product, Pink Pepper Gin, which some of you may know, some of you may have seen. And if not, we'll enjoy it together this evening. And before we get into that, we want to just tell you a little bit about how we ended up here. And how we came to be and how we came to be making gin.
Exactly.
Gin.
In Cognac.
In France. So we'll keep it brief though, because obviously we know we're on a time, so we won't go through the whole story. But basically, I was born in Essex.
Starts way back.
All right, not so way back.
Relax.
I'm a young lad from Clacton-on-Sea in Essex. I've done many things. I grew up, my family had a cafe, a proper English greasy spoon cafe. And so I've always sort of worked in hospitality from quite a young age as family businesses go. My dream was always actually to have a hotel. I don't know why, it was just I was a strange child and I had always wanted to have my own hotel. And I did various things beforehand and moved eventually to South America, first to Bolivia and then to Buenos Aires, where I found a beautiful old building, renovated it and turned it into a boutique hotel. I did that for several years and loved it. It was genuinely my passion, my dream to do that. But it's just a little bit too far away in Buenos Aires. It's the kind of distance that when people come to visit, especially your mother, they come for 3 weeks instead of a weekend. And so I decided I wanted to move a little bit closer to the UK and decided to move to France. In part because I really love the architecture in this region of France. There were some beautiful houses. I did that very British thing of buying an old chateau and spent 4 years renovating it. Once that was finished, I also love to cook. And there's a pattern that we're following here. There's both Miko and I love to follow our passions and our dreams, and that's how we ended up here. So I really enjoy cookery and I started up a soup business and I would sell soup in the market just across the road. And one day this small Australian chap,
you can't see, but I'm about a foot shorter than he is.
He's vertically challenged.
I'm just going to move forward so I look quite as big as you. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Anyway, yes, one day this chap came in to buy some soup and in exchange for soup, he gave me a little bit of gin to drink. And that was the very, very first batch of Pink Pepper Gin. This one. And to be honest with you, I was completely blown away by it. At that point, I didn't drink gin. I got very drunk on gin when I was far too young to drink and hadn't drunk it again since. And all of a sudden, I tried this spirit and I was just completely blown away by what I tasted. And that's how we met. That's how Miko and I. It was a very quick decision for me, by the way, to stop making soup and start working with Miko. But I'll shut up and let you tell him a little bit about himself.
I'm sorry, the cough was actually a real cough, and that's why I reached over for your water. I wasn't telling you to. No, I wasn't telling you to be quiet. I literally have a little problem with my throat.
See how short he is.
Moving forward. Hello, everyone. So my name is Miko, and as Ian, or as I call him, Bob. You're more than welcome to call him Bob Lum. It's his real name, actually. Yes. I am French-Australian, so I grew up in Sydney, and I moved here to France about 10 years ago now. So I have been making spirits and liqueurs with my family since I was a kid, really. It was a hobby of my mum's.
How old were you?
Oh, how old was I? When I was making liqueurs or when I was distilling?
When you started distilling, how old were you?
I was about 17. 17. My uncle is a chemical engineer. and we built my first still together, made some completely undrinkable things, and we left it in Australia and moved on to better things, safer things, shall we say. But it was a passion of mine that's been really around since I was very young, and it was always my dream to have my own distillery. Fast forward, living in London, working in the city at the time, and really just wanted to pursue what I loved, and decided to professionalize myself in distillation, and moved over to France. So I started off with actually a small postman's bike, traveling around France from distillery to distillery, looking for a place to settle and to find work. And it was a trip that lasted about 80 days with my tent on the front and a sleeping bag in the back. And it was a really, really wonderful experience that led to pretty much nothing. It was the equivalent of job seekers that actually led me to finding my job, which was here in Cognac, working for a large distillery where we distilled for two of the big Cognac houses, Courvoisier and Martel. So I spent 2 years working in this distillery, really understanding and learning the arts, and also the, I guess you'd say, the science and the industry behind the spirits. And then I wanted to set up something that was really to my own passion and to my own taste. So leaving Cognac for the Cognacier, or the French, I wanted to make something that was really based on botanicals, on plants, on fruits and herbs, and having a lot more freedom. And that was really what I was doing as a kid, you know, infusing fruits with alcohol and sweetening them and leaving them to age for a few months to come back and have a liqueur. So it's really plants and fruits and herbs, that botanicals essentially, that I find really the most interesting thing about this industry and about this profession. So I set up a small distillery in my living room where we are currently, and focused on making gin. Gin at the time, this is back in 2013, was not so much of a thing here in France. There were a few brands that were already established, but while the gin boom was in full swing in the UK, over here it was not even really mentioned. It took about 3-4 years later for it to start to happen. So I was producing gin here, and then this kind of does full circle. Brought a bottle of the first batch across to the market, which is just next door, and swapped some gin for some soup.
So the reason we love to just share that story with you is because we're really not a big company. We're not a big gin producer. We genuinely are two guys here who make each other over soup. Just love doing what we do. Really enjoy creating spirits. We're very fortunate to have two other people now in the company. We have Pip, who's based in the UK, and Marine, who's based with us here in France, who does everything that's nasty behind the scenes.
Logistics, things.
We'd be lost without her.
We're not slave labor.
And the other thing I must say before we go any further is that there will be a quiz at the end of this, and you will have the opportunity to win one of these vintage style tin signs featuring the Aldermas artwork for Pink Pepper Gin, which was an original watercolor. Vintage style tin signs. 3 of these will be up for grabs, and there will be a question based on something that he or I says. Says. And also, I should reassure you that we will very, very soon be drinking some gin. So please make sure you've got some ice to hand, and get everything ready. We're just going to tell you a little bit about the flagship spirit, Pink Pepper Gin, and then we'll be ready to pour. We'll do a tasting neat, and then we're going to build it onto a gin and tonic and cheers each other. But we'll do all of those stages together if you're up for it. So tell us about Pink Pepper Gin, lady.
Pink Pepper Gin. Why? I can do exactly that. I'm putting my glasses back on so I can actually see myself and not have artistic blur.
Do that.
So Pink Pepper Gin is, as Bob said, our flagship product. The aim of Pink Pepper was to make a spirit that was bold and aromatic, and that would actually evolve in the glass. If any of you have ever tried Armagnac, what they say to do when you're doing a tasting is to hold the glass of Armagnac in your hand and let the glass warm up and see how the flavors or the aromas evolve. And what I wanted to do was to recreate that movement and that evolution in the glass, but using a gin. So all of the botanicals are macerated separately in neutral grain spirit. So we use a French wheat spirit as the base. They're then distilled separately and blended together. So it's almost a process that is similar to, well, it's akin to making a perfume, but it's also crossed paths with chemistry and with distilling. It's a really, really broad and different way of producing spirits.
And a little bit later on, we will actually swivel the camera around seamlessly to show you the extent of the living room and the stills, which are in the opposite corner, which are currently bobbling away and distilling pink peppercorns currently in those stills.
Exactly, quite a coincidence. It's my second day distilling pink peppercorns. I've got about 6 more.
6 more days to go.
So should we do a tasting?
Yeah, so as Miko said, it's a unique spirit. It's sort of, you know, the way it's built, the way it's crafted makes it really aromatic and as he said, almost like a perfume. I'm just reaching in for my tasting glass. So what we'd like to do is just, don't drink this yet. Just, we're going to pour a little bit in your glass. You can use the same glass that you're going to use for your gin and tonic. But firstly, I think before we actually taste together, Jill, let's welcome back Jill, because I think she's got some special guests. I think she's got some guests to join us this evening for the tasting, and perhaps we could all taste it together. Jill, does that work for you?
Well, who told you that? Yes, I do. Indeed.
Louis.
Yes.
Pink Pepper Louis mentioned it.
Well, I don't think you should give gin to the dog. I think that might be a bit wrong. So I've got some humans. I've found some humans. The first one is Emile Ward, who is a spirits industry expert. Emile is joining us now. Hello, Emile.
Hi.
Good evening. And also, Taste of France subscriber, Peter Cullingford is joining us as well. And they're both allowed to drink.
Hello. Good evening, guys.
Peter, hello. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Back to you, Ian and Miko.
So,
Tasting.
guys, let's do all that, and everybody that's joining in for a little taste and neat. Let's just grab your glass and don't drink yet. Don't be tempted. Just pour some in. As I say, use the same glass that you're going to build your gin and tonic in, if that's the glass you've got to hand. Absolutely doesn't matter. Just have a little swirl around and go straight to the nose.
Maybe I'll get my own glass.
Get your own glass.
Exactly.
In this era of
COVID and all the
don't
rest of it.
mention that. Let's
No,
not.
sorry, no C word.
Just have a sniff.
So, as I said, pink pepper is made of 9 different botanicals. All of them are macerated separately and then distilled separately. And it's built like a perfume. So you have the top notes, which are juniper, pink peppercorn, and cardamom. In the core, you've got cinnamon and then 2 secret ingredients that I will have my head shot off by this man.
Never mention. Never reveal our secrets.
And then there's tonka bean, vanilla, and distilled honey that go into the base. So it's really made to have this very, very punchy, bright start. That is the pink peppercorn and juniper that's really, really punchy on the top of your nose. The top of your nose, I don't think you say that. That's the top of your nose.
You do now.
Yeah, exactly.
You
That's
just coined the phrase.
Exactly. It's on the top of your nose.
On the top of your nose.
And then as the glass warms up and the spirit begins to oxidize, you'll see that it'll actually head more towards the warmer, sweeter notes, almost like patisserie notes of tonka bean, vanilla, and something that's very, very creamy. And what you'll find when we taste is that you have that start, that intense burst to start with, and then it really, really warms up and smooths out towards the end. So
now we'll go to a tasting, and then, you know, I'd be interested to hear what everybody on the screen, these 3 guys, actually, whether you think we're talking rubbish or you would agree with that. But so lead with your nose. Please bear in mind, everybody that's about to taste this neat, it's 44%. So, you know, don't knock it back. And Santé.
From the top of your nose to the tip of your tongue. Cheers.
Cheers. Wow.
Yeah. I think you're completely right when you say it jumps at you at first, but it's quite sweet and you use a certain amount of honey as well, don't you?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so that brings sweetness to it.
Yeah, so the honey is distilled honey, and then we add in just a pinch of sugar that gives it that roundness at the base, but it's really just a small amount. The idea was to make a spirit that you can actually degustate. You can sip a sipping gin. Most gins, or the classic gins, are really, really dry, very straight. And you start with juniper and there's citrus, whereas this, I wanted something that was much rounder and warmer.
So it does actually work really well as a sipping, almost as a digestif, as much as it will work as an aperitif for those reasons.
What's really interesting though is, I mean, you're talking about the sweetness, which it does have, but it's not sweet. It's almost like confectioner's custard, if you will. Lovely buttery undertone after you get, I mean, it really is pink peppers, definitely. Lots of pink peppers. But then
so that's as Mika said, that's the top note. And that custardy note is also brought to us by tonka bean. And for those of you that don't know, tonka bean, as I love to say, is a really sexy little bean. I can't help it. It's so sexy. And it's like a cross between coffee and cocoa and custard, and it just it brings that note. It's what makes chocolate eclairs so amazing here in France. It's just, let's chuck some tonka in it, and it's so delicious as an ingredient.
Everybody's putting tonka beans on their shopping list now. You realise that, don't you?
Really should. They are awful to work with, in my opinion, because we get.
Well, hang on. They're awful to work with in large quantities. In
small
quantities,
absolutely.
You just grate them into anything you want.
I think as we're trying to establish everything that you're tasting, everything that does flow from this living room is really done by us and mainly by Miko. And the tonka beans, we sit with a Media Luna and you start chopping them and they ping everywhere and they're literally all over. So quite difficult to handle, but they're fun and they're so worth it. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, they're absolutely.
Peter, how are you finding it?
Yeah.
I absolutely love the kind of the fiery hit that you get immediately, and then when that kind of not teeters off, but when that disappears to the next level. And like Emil said, the sweetness comes through, and it's quite subtle, the flavour after. But the immediate hit is what I really, really like.
Yeah, and it's got a really smooth aftertaste as well.
Yeah, really smooth after. I'm a big fan of pepper in all dishes anyway, but this is really nice.
Yeah.
So the next, good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And firstly, I must say as well, and please, everybody, if you have comments, or we'll be answering questions later on, so please do, if you're doing this with us, if you're tasting with us, fire away your comments. And also, both Mika and I really believe you can't make a gin that everyone likes. It's impossible, and you shouldn't even try. So even if those comments are criticisms or negatives, just go for it. All you can really do as producers is produce something that you love. You give it everything, and this recipe took Miko 9 months to develop. So
please be nice. Don't make me
cry.
Please
don't upset it too much.
No, exactly. Don't be too.
You kind of hope that it's going to find a home because you love it. Do you know what I mean? It's and then another interesting thing that's now as part of the tasting is if you've got an ice cube to hand, which you're going to need for your gin and tonic in a minute, just to speed up the development of the gin itself. Just add an ice cube into the neat gin, let it chill, swill it round in the glass a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't have one that fits into my
No, sorry, I've only got large.
My ice is enormous. But just chill it down, let it chill. It's going to loose slightly, it's going to cloud slightly, and that's basically the patisserie notes are coming together, and they're now going to come to the fore. So it evolves basically as it's being drunk. By adding the ice, you sort of speed that up a little bit.
Yeah, you definitely. It's like it homogenizes almost, and so you get that biscuity flavour, but with the warmth of the pepper underneath now, rather than being so top notey.
It switches around absolutely. Which actually then makes it a really playful gin. There are various technical reasons behind that, which one day you'll see. Very still and sober there. Oh, sorry. That's all right. Carry on. I'm just quite impressed. I never see you.
It seems like a very nice drink for this time of year as well. Normally, I associate gin with the summer, but I think because of the flavors and how warming it is, it's perfect for kind of the darker, colder months.
Absolutely. It also makes an incredible mulled Negroni.
Wow. Okay.
Mulled Negroni.
Mulled Negroni. I can share the recipe with you.
You need to explain that more.
Well, we'll share the recipe later. We won't go into too many cocktails over. We've only got an hour to share love with you. But we can share it with you to share on the site later, or
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely. But yeah, a mulled cocktail and a mulled Negroni especially it's a really, really beautiful spirit for that. So yeah, a good winter warmer. There's also, because there's cinnamon involved in the mix as well, it has that kind of
warm Christmasiness to it.
Christmassy feel.
Nice.
Is it quite rare to find gins that you can enjoy neat? Because for me, you don't drink gin neat. It's got to have a mixer.
I think
But
there
it
are.
does work.
Yeah, there are certain gins, and I think that Emil could probably speak to. I think Emil has tasted far more gins than all of us put together.
I'm not sure. Your shelf looks pretty impressive, I have to say.
Yeah, the shelf, but that's not all gins. The gins are a minority on there. They're mainly just bizarre.
I
things.
should say as well, that's only one shelf. I mean,
Okay.
it goes up.
My gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, they're mainly just
they're,
bizarre things that I
yeah.
pick up on my travels. But and Emil, I'd be
Yeah.
interested to hear what you think. But
Yeah, I mean, a lot more gins have recently become focused on that at-home experience, and drinking just neat. So I think it is definitely something that a lot of people are drinking a lot more recently, and I think it's a testament to how good gins have become.
absolutely,
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's a really fair point as well. That, again, from a producer's perspective, I think the spirit needs to stand up neat. That's the quality. And of course, it needs to be enjoyed in a cocktail or as a gin and tonic, which we're going to get to right now. But it comes down what is really important in that mix, whether it be a cocktail or a gin and tonic, is the spirit. So in a sense, it should stand up on its own neat. I love to enjoy it just with that ice cube. That last bit that we've just done there, that for me is my favourite way of drinking pink pepper gin. It just opens up. It's a digestif. It's a wonderful way to enjoy it. That said, we'd love to make a gin and tonic. I say we. He's doing it.
Exactly, I'm doing it. So you have your favourite glass. Mine is basically invisible. Again, I've taken off my glasses, so I can't see anything anyway.
He's making one, by the way, because I'm driving.
Exactly. Then you put in your ice cubes. Now, a really good astuce, a really good idea is to fill up the glass as much as possible with ice, because the more ice that goes into it, the less you're actually going to dilute it. It's going to really, really chill down the gin and tonic and mean that it's going to last for a lot longer. So you
fill it up, Jill. Fill that glass. Fill your glasses with ices.
I don't like loads of ice. I like it to chill the drink. But when you order a gin and tonic in a bar these days, you get so much ice. What I don't like is when it actually dilutes the flavour too much. That's why I put
it's funny. It's counterintuitive, because the less ice you put in, the quicker it will dilute the drink, because it will melt more quickly. So the more ice you put in, I know it sounds crazy. You have to think about it. It will stay cold longer because it won't melt.
Oh, that makes sense. Yes, I see what you mean. So it chills the drink down enough that it doesn't warm up the ice and make the ice melt.
Absolutely,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
is there
you suggest as much ice as you can. Now, obviously, if you want to, you can use, and you're at home, you want to measure your gin. We love a lot. We've done it a few times, so we know what we're putting in.
Don't need to know. It's a new glass, though, so I don't know.
Oh God, he's going to get drunk. So if you happen to have a jigger, you can do a 50 ml measure. We would love to share with you this evening. You can do a smaller gin if you want, a 25 ml. Egg cup is really useful if you don't have a jigger. Or just do it by eye.
A couple of seconds, right? If you just count 1, 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great thing.
Then you've got to think of the angle at which you're pouring. Is it a 30% angle or is it 45% angle?
Oh God.
That's right.
Anyway, it's very, there are a lot of people that say, what's your perfect gin and tonic? It's really subjective, really subjective. Just experiment. I mean, we go to great lengths to produce a spirit that is playful and, experimentation. It's born from experimentation, as you'll see when I spin the camera around. So experiment with it, play around with it, see what measure you like. As a rough guide, we would go 2 parts tonic to 1 part gin. As a rough guide.
Or 3.
What about garnishes?
We'll come on to that in just a second.
Okay.
1 second.
So-
Can I ask a quick question as well?
Yeah.
Does it matter if you put the ice or the gin in first, or does that not matter at all? Is not going to alter the taste?
I'm sure that there are some purists will say that it makes a difference, but for me, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And for me, I throw it all together so quickly, it really doesn't make any difference. I agree, Miko, as with Miko, I'm sure there is a correct or a purist that will tell us we're being bad.
So we're using Fever Tree aromatic tonic water. The idea is use a premium tonic water if you've got a premium gin. It's as simple as that. We really love working with Fever Tree. It's delicious. It's balanced. They've got a range of different tonics and soda waters that you can use, and it's fantastic. So I've made my gin and tonic there, which I think it was slightly, I think it was probably a 2 to 1. That's slightly stronger than what I usually do.
A good mix. And in terms of, to answer your question, Jill, in terms of a garnish, again, it's about experimentation. So, our take on it is we create pink pepper gin. So you don't need to add pink peppercorns as a garnish because they're already in the spirit. So complement it with something, and again, play around. It works really beautifully with pink grapefruit. In this one, Miko's used a bay leaf, which, if you two bay leaves, and if you just crack the bay leaf, you get that really subtle, before you put it in, that really subtle aroma.
I did it after.
You did it after.
Exactly.
I like
If it was black here, I would go outside and pick some bay leaves and try it. I have to wait until tomorrow to do that. It's too dark.
Anything herbal. Try, rosemary. I actually really love with the lavender flower, something that just leads with the nose and complements whatever the gin is, whatever the spirit is. Experiment and try different things. And again, as Miko was saying with the tonics, if you've got a premium product, a premium gin, just use a premium tonic. We love the Fever Tree range. They're made with the same passion that we employ here. And their elderflower tonic is superb with pink pepper gin. And this one, the aromatic, because it's got that hint of Angostura bark, which gives a slight bitterness at the end, which balances with the honey and that sexy little tonka bean. Okay, everybody, cheers.
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 Chin chin.
Cheers, lady.
Cheers.
Emil and Peter.
Yes.
Have you questions for Miko and Ian that you'd like to?
No, not any more questions at this stage. I will, maybe in a minute I will.
Well, I think maybe just for me is how much did, and you probably answer this in different ways, but how much has cognac influenced the ingredients you choose? What you see, what you taste, and what what you can actually, I don't know if forage is the right word, but you can get locally. How much has that gone into the recipe?
It's interesting. I'd probably say not that much. The idea of pink pepper initially was really an experiment. I had no idea when I was actually making it that it was going to be a commercial product. So back in the day, in 2013, when I was doing my experimenting, I literally distilled everything I could get my hands on. I distilled everything from trout eggs to dirt to lichen to different sorts of foods, capers, and we have another caper spirit, all sorts of things. And then it was really just a job of blending all of those different things together and finding the right balance. And I think that at that time, because I didn't know that it was going to be something that I would be producing, my aim wasn't to really focus on locally sourced and things like that. So it's only after the fact that we've started making it that we're really going closer to the producers with whom we work, and trying to get Sorry for the. If you, I don't know if you can hear the buzzing, but that's my vacuum pump that's pumping in the still.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll turn that
It's
off.
a working distillery.
It's a working distillery, so the noise is.
Live from the distillery.
So there's one botanical that we do get from not too far away in Bergerac, which is the honey. So it's a spring honey that comes around May, around April, May, and that is a miel de toute fleur, an all flower honey. God, I know I've got the word in French, but not in English. And it's a really, really beautiful, creamy honey that we use that's very, very floral and really, really bright. But another example of something that isn't local, but that we work very, very closely with the people who produce it, is the vanilla, which comes from the small island of Sao Tome, which is just off the coast of Gabon. And we actually helped establish a small cooperative of vanilla growers to be able to source our vanilla directly from them. So I'd say that what's the influence that cognac has had is in terms of how to treat alcohol, generally speaking, and the whole maîtrise.
Yeah, I mean, this whole town is based around alcohol and has been for many hundreds of years. Everything, it's a great place for a spirit producer to be based, because everything that you need, from the bottles to the labels to the boxes to the corks, everything is here, because the town exists for cognac, the spirit, initially. Things like, just coming back to the ingredients as well, the honey being locally sourced, so as Miko said before, the 9 botanicals that are in there, 7 of them are distilled under vacuum. Each one is distilled on its own, and then we blend those together for the final recipe. But each batch, because of the ingredients, we only use it's nothing artificial that we work with at all. So there's always slight differences in the ingredients, especially in the honey. It depends what the bees have been busy on. And sometimes when we do a tasting, people can say, "Oh, I get a bit of lavender in that." No, there isn't any lavender in it, but obviously if that's that particular crop of honey, there is slightly. So each time Miko blends the batch of gin, there are tiny adjustments to be made. There is a recipe, but there's always slight adjustments to it. If you've got a bottle, which I think many of you may have brought ahead, thank you, Spirits Kiosk, for giving a great discount for everyone that's tuned in. But the batches on the side of the bottle, it has a stamp. Now, literally, we work with a bottling partner, and back in the day, it would be Miko or I stood on the bottling line with a little rubber stamp stamping the side of every bottle like this. And it has a batch name. Now, the batch names are dedicated to family, friends. I've got my favorite BIL, which is my favorite brother-in-law. And the reason we do that, in part, is to thank everybody that's been a part of what we do. By naming a batch of gin after them, but also so that we know what went into that batch. We know exactly what the ratios of what goes in, because it's all handmade. There are always slight differences. I hope I'm not rambling and that makes sense.
So basically what you're saying is that if I bought a bottle that was made 3 years ago, and bought a bottle that was made this year, there is going to be a variation in flavors, much like with wine.
Yes and no. The variations between the batches are so subtle, Jill, that most people you wouldn't have a bottle and say.
You say I've got an uneducated palate.
I was trying to not say that, but yes, that's what I meant.
I'm going to have to buy all of the gins from all the years now to just check that out.
Yes, I hardly encourage that you do that. Although a lot of them now are very rare. Obviously, when we started, the first batch was 50 bottles. And then I think we went up to 500 bottles 500. For a couple of batches, and then the last one, my favorite bill, was 20,000 batches. So
wow, huge.
Well, but each one has been an incremental change, I suppose. Really. But some of them, Bob's batch, which is named after me, was batch number 2, I think.
That's number 2.
I can't get. I kept one bottle. Of course, I can never open it. Do you know what I mean? I keep a bottle of every batch, but now I keep 2, so that eventually one day I can open it. But from Bob's batch, I can never open it. So if anyone's got one, let me know, and I'll
Well, I do have one question. I was just going to say, are there any kind of like cooking recipes that you'd recommend to use this in?
Yes, but again, I would come back to just experiment with it. I love to cook with all of the spirits that Miko creates. I just enjoy cooking with them. Pink pepper gin. Initially, the first recipe I ever did with it was with endives. And just at the last minute, I was searing endives in a bit of orange juice, bit of orange zest. And then at the last minute, really high heat, just drizzled with pink pepper gin and let it just soak in of all those flavors. Absolutely delicious. Just transforms that endive. And again, endives have a slight bitterness to them, which is really balanced with the gin. The last few things I've done have been experimenting with risottos and doing different risottos, replacing the gin, replacing the wine with gin initial stage. The last one I did was really delicious, which was a seafood, a prawn and lemon risotto. And again, those flavors really complemented with pink pepper gin. So I love cooking with it.
But gin works really well in like cheesecakes and things like that as well. So I didn't know if there was like savory dishes that would also work well with it. So that's interesting you say about risotto.
We don't like dessert, so
no, I really don't. I don't need dessert. So, but we do a spirit which perhaps if there's time later on we can talk a little bit about. But there's a wonderful spirit that we make called covert liqueur, which is a fig leaf liqueur.
Oh, okay.
That is absolutely my favourite one to cook with. I mean, I roasted lamb with it a few weeks ago, and just in the last half hour of the cooking of a joint of lamb, just skewered it, drizzled. You don't need a lot. I mean, they're really flavoursome, they're really bold spirits, but just drizzle a little bit over the lamb, put it back in the oven for half an hour with a bit of rosemary. At the end of the day, you've got that, then you've got your gravy, and you've just got this lovely figgy flavour along with it. But also it works beautifully just with cheese and obviously the figs and cheese is a long history. But we shouldn't digress too much.
So I believe you're going to show us your sitting room. So I'm going to briefly say thank you very much and goodbye for now at least to Emil and Peter.
Thank you.
Something clever with your camera, I believe.
Well, yes, and thank you for joining us. And when Jill says I'm going to do something incredible with the camera, I'm literally going to spin it around. I'm going to let Miko's going to go over by the stills while he's traveling that huge distance to the other side of the room. We thought it'd be quite fun to ask you a question. And so we've got a quick poll, which I'm reading from a notes here for you, just to give you the question. And through the power of technology, I'm going to press this button and you'll all be able to answer. And we were curious, how do you decide when you're buying a gin, how do you decide which gin to buy? Is it, for example, recommendations from friends? Are you sucked in by a bit of advertising? Are you, do you decide by price? So I'm going to probably fall flat on my face here, but I think if I press this button, you should all have. There you go. That's now ready for you to answer, and we'll come back to that. I'm going to then let Miko have his say and show you how and where we create everything. And after he's finished, we'll just come back and see what the responses are to that poll. And thank you for taking part. Here's my seamless bit. Ready? So as we take you around, the living room, I should go this way first, actually. So you will see it genuinely is a living room. There's the sofa and there's the dog. And as we go around the other way, seamlessly, the Christmas cactus. And that is what we call in the corner, that is a rotovap. So that machine we used to produce the first few batches of pink pepper gin. It's a vacuum still. And on the shelves here, you'll see all the experiments that Miko has distilled. And then literally as you get to the other side, these are also rotovaps and Miko.
They're actually chemical reactors.
Chemical reactors.
So these are vacuum stills. Well done, lady. That was
Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful camera work.
That was my honour.
It's quite an incredible director and a DP. Director of photography. It's fantastic. So we are on the other side of the distillery right now. You travel all that way. This is, these are 2 vacuum stills, or the technical name is a chemical reactor. I'm actually just going to turn off our pump. That's better. So the idea of distillation, or the way distillation works, is through evaporation and condensation. It's as simple as that. So essentially here, we've got a mixture of alcohol and pink peppercorns, which have been macerating for a few days and sitting there. Every morning I come in, load up the stills, and then this heats up with some machines just next door that heat up this double envelope here, and it works kind of like a bain marie. It boils, the vapors rise up, hit the condenser, and then fall down into here. So it's something that's really, really simple. It's literally just like when you're making pasta at home. You have the lid on the casserole, you lift it off, and you've got condensed water. You are technically distilling water there. The one big difference with this form of distillation compared to making cognac or making whiskey, for example, is this slightly bizarre little machine here, which I don't even know you can see. I'm not wearing my glasses, so everything is just a giant blur to me right now. But this is a vacuum pump that is attached to the 2 systems here, and will reduce the pressure inside the still, which means that you're going to lower the temperature at which the alcohol will actually boil. So the idea of that is that you can distill at varying temperatures, and you can distill very, very precisely. So right now, as I said, there are pink peppercorns that are in here, and they are distilling. So this still is at 60 degrees. The honey that we distill is at 65 degrees, which is actually the hottest temperature that we distill. The juniper is between 45 degrees and 50 degrees. I don't know why I'm going into maybe too much detail, but essentially all it is to say that everything is distilled to really get the best flavor out of every botanical. And that means that everything is distilled to really get a very, very precise flavor. So
It's kind of like, sorry, hello.
Welcome on the screen.
It's kind of like, it's actually not similar to cooking soup or just cooking in general. I mean, you think about it, let's take pink peppercorns, for example. They're a berry. And if you cook anything like a berry, if you cook it too much, it's going to completely change its flavour. It's going to completely ruin its flavour. And so, yeah, it's really important just to find that sweet spot. You don't want to overcook it, you don't want to undercook it. You just want to find that sweet spot of cooking. I'm going to go off camera again now. All right.
Okay. Well, I think we can probably swing.
We can swing the camera back round so you can see just the 2 of us. And we'll be happy to answer when we come back a little bit later. When Jill comes back a little bit later, we'll happily answer any questions you've got on the distillation techniques. Just now, coming back to that poll, as we promised, can you believe, before we do, that you started doing all of that when you were 17?
No.
17?
I do.
He had hair.
And hair.
I had dark hair.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry, I digressed. So how do you decide which gin you're going to buy? Thank you, everybody, for answering. We've got 10% of you are driven by price or influenced by the price. I actually thought that would be higher.
Yeah, so did I. Really
So, yeah, it's interesting. Recommendations from friends is a whopping 87%. And in last place, advertisements. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, so am I. That's really
and recommendations from friends. That's nice.
Absolutely.
We've got a nice bunch here.
Indeed.
I like them. And thank you very much for taking part in our little poll there. Hold on, I'm just now trying to get that off my screen. There we go. Hi, welcome back. So now you've seen the distillery. Before we welcome Jill back, who's going to fire some questions that apparently we have a long list of questions there from you, so we want to make sure we answer all of them before our time is up. But we have a question for you, a quiz, a competition.
Oh.
Now, Taste of France are very generously doing their own competition separately. This one is just from us. So Taste of France will be giving out a bottle of gin, details of which I think most of you already have, but that will be done afterwards. we are going to ask you a different question, and 3 of you will get a chance to win one of these beautiful vintage style tin signs that will look lovely anywhere you decide to hang it. And the question we would like to ask you, in order to win, just the first 3 people to put that answer in the Q&A section on here. So make sure it's in the Q&A section, have your fingers ready. The question is, where's my drum roll?
Sorry, Lily.
Oh my God. The question is, how old was Miko when he started distilling? How old was Miko?
I don't even remember.
And don't forget, please answer in the Q&A section. The first 3 people to get the right answer, we will send you out. We'll be in touch afterwards, and we will send you out your tin signs. So yeah, we're probably going to stop rambling now. We're going to welcome back Jill and answer some questions from you all. Hi,
Hello.
Jill.
Hello.
Hi.
Enjoyed the tour of the living room.
It was beautiful. It was amazing that you can do that stuff in that room. Just the magic happens just like that. I mean, I know you put more work.
Don't massage his ego too much.
Before we go to audience questions, I wanted to know about food pairing. I think it was Peter who asked earlier about cooking with gin, but traditionally gin is something that you have, before or after a meal. What would you serve pink pepper gin with in terms of food?
Well, it does. It works really, really beautifully with savoury dishes, which comes as a bit of a surprise to most people, because you would think of it as an aperitif and something you'd have as a starter, or alongside a starter. But actually, during the course of the meal, because it's so bold, because it's so aromatic as well, and then you said yourself before, in the same way that a wine will age, really, really complements with savoury dishes. I personally love it with seafood. Most seafood dishes.
Yeah, I think if you, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I think if you're going to have kind of something light like ceviche or smoked salmon, it works really, really beautifully just in a light gin and tonic, or in another cocktail that really, really is very bright and very fresh. But then also, I think it works really beautifully as something to accompany a dessert in maybe a warmer, creamier style drink like a Negroni or bee's knees, served next to with a warm chocolate cake, for example, or something like that. It works really, really beautifully.
But again, I think mainly just and I know I've already said it before, but it's really important to stress in the raison d'être almost of what we do. It's about experimentation. Try it.
Have fun with it. Yeah,
have fun with it. That's what it gives us so much pleasure when people do actually just have fun with it, because that's where it comes from.
I have some audience questions now.
Hi, audience. Hello.
Joanna Rainbow would like to know where the name Audemus comes from.
So Audemus actually should be pronounced Audemus, and it means we dare in Latin. So the simple idea of just daring to do something differently. There we go.
By the way, I think the name Joanna Rainbow is the strongest name so far.
You're going to rename your gin. Dominique Campbell would like to know where gin comes from originally.
Where gin comes from originally?
Yeah. Give us a gin history lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's difficult to say. Are you talking about gin as it is today, or are you saying the ancestor of gin, which is Genever? So gin. Sorry, you're looking a tiny bit confused.
No, I didn't. I didn't even. I'm not even heard of that. So tell us the whole story.
So the ancestor of gin, which is Genever, was actually made in Holland, and it was something. Juniper was added to a malt spirit, or essentially a rather musty tasting base spirit, And to give it a bit of flavor, to give it a bit of brightness, and to kind of perfume its not very tastiness, if that's a way that you could say it. They added in juniper and redistilled it and made what is still produced today as Genever. And then it was actually William of Orange, when he entered into the court in England, he brought the taste of Genever across into England. And it was only quite a while later that gin actually came to be, when the English turned it into something using their own spirit. So gin, by definition, has to be made with neutral grain spirit, or with neutral spirit. And I'm possibly going to go too far into coffee stills and different sorts of distillation, but let's just say that it was the English. And Emil will probably have the right answer for exactly the year, but I don't
bet
have
he
the
does as well.
don't
We
have
don't have years to hand.
Oh, here he is.
No, I do not know that.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, you came on to tell us you didn't know.
But it was the English that kind of perfected, or inverted commas, or distilled juniper with neutral grain spirit. And I believe that it was in the 1800s, but I could be wrong. I'm probably very, very wrong. Please don't.
It's got a terrible reputation as well in England, at least, for ruining families and all those old Mother's Ruin. Yeah. I can't remember who did the drawings, the famous drawings of Gin Lane.
Yes.
I've forgotten his name as well.
Hogarth. No, not Hogarth. Hogarth?
Yes, Hogarth, exactly. So gin had a very, very bad reputation. It was seen almost like crack is seen today, as something that ruins families. People would, spend all of their money on it. They would steal, they would murder in order to get money to be able to buy gin. I think it's back in the day when there was, the gin that was being produced was not of the same quality as what we're distilling today. And very often it was something that was dangerous because it was distilled badly. It was distilled using alcohols that weren't properly distilled. And they could have methanol in there and different things that could lead you to go blind, and hence the reputation that bad alcohol has. Let's just say that in the last
Things have changed.
Yeah, in the last 100 years or so, with the industrialization of all of our food, everything has kind of led to spirits and to gin being distilled better, healthy, and not so dangerous.
Anthony Lockwood wanted to know where you find your inspiration from, which is something I wanted to ask you as well, because you do really crazy sounding gins like Umami. Can you tell us a bit more about your inspiration, how you come up with these flavor combinations, and what else you've got in your range?
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite a vast question. In terms of inspiration, it's something that is a blend of talking with people, of tasting something new, of hearing about a new spice, about going for a walk in the forest or by the sea and just picking and ripping up a leaf and seeing what it smells like. You mentioned Umami, which is our caper-based gin. So it's a gin that's made with distilled capers and infused with Parmesan. It's just above you up there. It's too high up. And then I'll get Cobra as well. So it's a really, really beautiful gin, and that came out of a conversation with a barman who just wondered what the flavour Umami would be like in a gin. And Covert, which is my personal favourite in the range, is the fig leaf liqueur that Bob mentioned before. So the inspiration for this was literally just that aroma that you get when you walk beside a fig tree, or you're sitting under a fig tree in the heat of summer, and the sun is beating down on the leaves, and it's really, really warm and enveloping flavour and aroma that emanates from this tree. I wanted to convert that into liquid form. So we get fig leaves from southeast France, bring them back to the distillery, I roast them in the oven here, infuse them in alcohol, and then mix in cognac and distilled honey, and obviously a bit of sugar. And it just leads to this liqueur, which is really beautifully biscuity, almost going through flavors of coconut and chamomile, hay, tea, fig jam, grilled hazelnuts. It's just really, really delicious.
I should say, when the dude that makes it says this is my favorite spirit, probably worth seeking out.
And I was going to say, maybe we need to do another tasting and try it, because I definitely want to try that one. It sounds amazing.
I mean, it is quite amazing. There are a few fig liqueurs, but fig leaves that when they're really young, they have all of the flavour of the fruit, but none of that cloyiness, none of that
sticky, gooey.
I don't eat.
I like the sticky, gooey fruit as well. So
I'm strange in the world. I don't eat fruit at all.
Apples.
So I wouldn't. Well, not really. Not for about a year.
you're just on the pure gin diet.
Yeah, effectively.
That's how you get your vegetables and your,
You
nutrients.
know, this taste of flavour from the fig leaves. It just, although it's recognisably fig, it just has this real, obviously, vegetal note to it. It's like a farmyard thing going on. It's stunning. It's really worth digging out.
It's our farmyard liqueur.
And thank you, Ant, for the question.
Indeed.
And also, I would say it's important to say that probably conversations and meeting people and experiences with people is mainly where the inspiration comes from. And we're fortunate. We work really closely with Waitrose, and they have a drinks festival each year, and we do a workshop with them called Craft Your Own Gin. And we get people that come along, we take along distillates, and people create, and it's really fascinating just to find out what people love, what they want to see a gin, or involved in a gin. It's a really, and it actually does inspire us as well. The flip side of that as well, Miko's worked recently this year with Anne-Sophie Pic, who some of you may know, I think, from MasterChef. She appears on, and she's a 3 Michelin star chef. Strange ringtone.
I know.
Sorry. Off. And so to be able to work with somebody like Anne-Sophie Pic and create a spirit, a gin for her, which is inspired by all of the flavors and the ingredients that she loves.
Wow.
Was really amazing. And
there's also quite a the first time that I met Emile, and I don't know if you remember this, Emile, but the first time that we met, I came and saw you and your brother, and I just developed a gin called Dive Bar Gin, which was made with Lapsang Souchong, cubeb, coriander, juniper, obviously. And my inspiration was to make a gin that you kind of walk down the stairs in an old jazz club. We used to have one in Sydney that's since closed down called Soup Plus. It was smoky and it was really, really lovely. I wanted to recreate that aroma and that idea. And Emile, I'll let you explain what happened, if you remember.
Well, no, actually, it was mostly my brother. I do remember the conversation very well. I don't, he was doing something separate. I mean, a long story, my brother also had, we also have a rotary evaporator in the office, and we did do some distillation of our own, and he was working on Lapsang Souchong as well at the same time. So, but you'll probably tell it better, because I was just a partaker in that conversation.
Well, it was essentially that he wanted to create something that smelled like an old book when you opened it, and kind of had that sort of aroma. And I was absolutely flabbergasted, because I think that Lapsang Souchong was in common, cubeb was in common, juniper was in common. And if I remember correctly, one of the really, really obscure ones that I used in there is called ombrette. Which is it's a seed from a flower that comes from India, and it's really, really amber, rich and beautiful, kind of opalescent flavor. And if I remember correctly, he also used that in the gin, and it was literally a gin that we hadn't even met. We didn't even know that that we were working on something similar, and we had used very, very similar ingredients. So it was quite stunning.
Yeah. It was an interesting meeting, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
of ideas. Yeah, that was great.
Worth saying as well, just coming back to the question, in terms of we love, as I hope you can tell, we just love doing what we do. We love experimenting. We love making different spirits. And there's a head to Spirits kiosk if you're interested. This is a shameless plug, but there's a beautiful little gift pack on there which has 4 of our spirits in there: Pink Pepper Gin, but also Covert Liqueur, distiller's favourite, Umami Gin, and a bitter liqueur that we make called Sepia. But it's in a really beautiful little box with a little pop-up lid, and you get 4 miniatures inside, and it's just something you're going to want to keep. So if you wanted to try them before you went the whole hog and made a full investment, it's just a really good way of trying it. And inside the box, you get a little recipe card that gives you cocktail ideas. So we don't like to throw anything away. So the divider for the box is a recipe booklet with
nifty
and things. Anyway, that was a shameless plug. I'm ashamed of myself.
No, it's shameless. You're not ashamed.
Oh, I'm not ashamed of myself.
Exactly.
No.
I'm going to butt in very briefly because we have the names of our winners.
Ah, amazing.
So I thought you'd like to know that the winners of the sign are Marlette Rankin, Claire Ward, and Angela Kendall. Congratulations to all of you. And the winner of the gin is Dominique Campbell.
Oh, congratulations, everybody.
And somebody has just asked me, can you buy those signs anywhere if anybody wants one but didn't win?
Yes, you can. They are on our own website. So our own website, we don't sell any of our main products. We just have limited editions and things that we do because we already have great partners for our main products. But
And what's the website?
The tin signs are on there, which is aldermaspirits.com.
And another question that's come up with various of our audience members tonight. I think we're going to probably answer this on our website because it'll be easier that way. But where people can buy stuff from. So people are in Canada, Singapore, they want to know where they can buy the drinks from. But I'm assuming we can't really go into that right now. It's better to just be able to.
Yeah, I'll happily answer afterwards and go through directly. I mean,
Yeah.
For UK based, the Spirits Kiosk has the whole range. We've literally for Canada, we've literally just started. If you're still listening, I think it was last month we did the first delivery with a partner called the Case for Wine. We're not everywhere by any means at all, but we have some great partners in the markets that we've chosen to. I think from a commercial perspective, we've always felt really strongly that we're not the kind of people just to go everywhere all at once. We wanted to establish France, then get that right before we moved on. And then that was to the UK. Once we felt we're at the right stage, we've moved on to different partners. So by no means are we everywhere. And unfortunately, since that whole bee thing happened, it's a little bit difficult to buy online from the UK and get it shipped all across Europe. But
You what?
there. That little B, the little B word. We don't mention that.
Yeah, mention that. I'm going to round off with one final question because we're going to have to let you go. What are your plans for 2022 in a nutshell? What are you hoping for from next year?
Plans for 2022.
Holidays.
No.
That'd be nice.
I'd say there's a multi-layered answer. We're not the kind of people to make big plans. However, we do. No, it's quite exciting actually. By the middle of summer, we've got a new piece of equipment that is significantly larger than the 2 stills you saw this evening that are bubbling away over there. And that's going to start work in June. He's going to start working it by June of this year, which will just enable us to. What we love doing, again, I'm going to bore you to tears, what we love doing is playing around with spirits. We love enjoying ourselves with spirits. And so, the idea is that the big still will enable us to do things a lot more quickly and then focus on experimentation and continuing to make stuff. We've got some great packs coming out, some limited editions. We've got a new gin liqueur that's being relaunched back through popular demand. in the spring. For those who really want to follow us and see what we're going to be up to, social media is really the best way. I do all of our Instagram and Facebook stuff, so which is just at Audemus_spirits. And that's where we'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on.
On that note, I have to say thank you both very much for showing us around your sitting room and leading us through this tasting. It's been fascinating. Thank you ever so much, guys. And I'm sure we'll do something else again soon. And thank you, Emil, for your expertise, and Peter as well, who I think you might have gone. Thank you very much, and good evening to you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for hosting us and for organising the whole thing too. It's been absolutely amazing, and to the whole team behind us. I know there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes for this as well, so thank you. Bye-bye. We'll see you all again soon, I hope.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
And thank you also to all of our viewers who are still with us. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was fascinating. As Ian and Miko said, Audemus products are available on spiritskiosk.com. We will try to answer your questions about different parts of the world and where you can get hold of them via our website. If you have any other questions, you can also contact us at hello@tasteoffrancemag.com. And really, that's all we have for you this evening. Thanks ever so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Chin chin.